Hey, we're Rouse Twice. I'm back here for another zombie commentary. Today, we are diving into a discussion at which you guys brought up in our very last video. In the last video, we discussed the storyline troubles inside Treyarch's game and some of the things they went back and forth trying to tell us about the 1.0 characters and the sacrifice and the narrative they were explaining, only to just change up what they were doing at the last minute. It bewildered all of us. And if you'd like to hear more about that discussion, I recommend checking out the video linked in the cards or in the description down below. But for today's topic, and again, this is an opinion piece, is about science versus fantasy. Did Treyarch make the right move, changing from their scientific origins to the fantasy origins? And is this just a personality-based thing, or was zombies really originally supposed to be science? Is the true nature of this game based in scientific anomalies and research versus fantasy allowing us to do whatever we want to do? So I wanted to do a little fun thing that creates more discussion, because I love where we've been going these past videos and the conversations that we've been having. It's been very fun, especially in a dead period of zombies, and it's a good way for, if the developers are listening, to get some feedback too and start to shape and form their ideas for the next game and the next type of zombie, because they are listening. And what Jason did from Moon onwards, even though Jimmy was still in charge of some of the maps, he was really pushing the direction of zombies. So we can create this idea of from Nocturne Toten to Buried was really Jimmy Zielinski's ideas about zombies. Mob of the Dead all the way through Revelation was really Jason's idea about zombies. Jimmy was rooted in science and some really strange stuff at times with the Vrilya and really off-nature legends and lore, while Jason was looking at fantasy elements and a fantastical approach to this mythical world that we're playing in that is Call of Duty Zombies. Originally, Zombies was all about this Nazi research. It was based in this idea that the Nazis were trying to research these secret, unstable weapons to do anything they could to win the war. And through this, we started getting all these chemically engineered drinks that enhanced your abilities. They started getting teleporters and the Bell, Die Glock, chemically engineered zombies to create a super army to beat all these bad guys, especially made weapons for the war, all kinds of really awesome ideas that was all surrounding around this idea that everything was made with different intentions. We find later on in Zombies, these things are very tailor-made to the maps and were being developed in specifics in mind when we start getting into Division 9 and all this other research and dragons, and it was all really tailored toward the storyline and what's going on. Versus what we played in World at War and Jimmy Zombies was happenings of circumstances. We stumbled upon this crazy place and zombies showed up. How are we gonna survive this? How are we gonna figure our way out? You have traps as well starting to be put into the science elements, where we have Tesla coils, we have electric traps, we have certain things that do cross between the games. Now, I'm not just separating Black Ops 3 from World at War and saying they're completely different. Not true, because there are scientific elements inside Black Ops 3. I think that's probably why Der Eisendrock did so well for the most part, where we saw these things where we had Tesla coils and we had teleporters and we had jump pads and we had all kinds of really interesting stuff, because once again we got into our roots of Group 935, the war, the research. It was all coming back, and then they completely went away from that, except it started to come back again in Gorod Krovi, getting everybody excited. The Nazis developed these Valkyrie drones and these gigant robots the Russians stole from them, and it was interesting. But this idea of running away with the giant, you know, this bigger meaning instead of being so literal. It's strange how we'd start going back and forth with these ideas that is almost like a push and pull effect of, like, if we really take this literally, it starts to hurt the story, but if we take it too figuratively, no one understands it. And we kept having this really imbalance as the game went on for a variety of reasons we'll get into. The story was told so much differently from a scientific point of view in the original games, where you had all these events based on something that could be real, where fantasy throws it out and says, we can explain it, it's fantasy. It's a world that of make-believe, we can do what we want. Here's our rules, you accept them. Where in the original games it was, well, this could happen in this story narrative that we're telling here if it went slightly different, almost like a Wolfenstein, where just like if the Nazis won the war. Well, here we're just saying, well, what if they did make a breakthrough in this development? And what if we go to these mythical places? It was very much based in like an Atlantis, a Shangri-La. You have all these really interesting mystical things that the Nazis were actually documented trying to find research into to try and figure out any way to get an advantage, to help the super race, their Aryan race, all these really incredible ideas and philosophies and myths and legends was playing into zombies. That's why we even had in Call of the Dead the golden rod coming down, the Vrillia, this mystic race and all this stuff. It was all playing off lore and books and stuff that we've heard, almost like out of Uncharted, where you hear like these secret mysteries of the world, and all of a sudden we're playing in these places. Oh my gosh, they're real. And then we're using science to find them, these crazy weaponries that were created to try and mine these places or figure out what's going on. You have the Wonderwaff DG2, which is supposed to be this awesome mass-produced weapon to bring a swift end to the war, but then you get into the fantasy elements in Black Ops 3. You start getting weapons like the Apothicon Servant, where we no longer say, oh, you know, it uses 115 and it enhances this, and you see the lightning comes out, we see these little, and all this little details, little really fun details, where this just becomes, that is a squid shooting a ball of Gersh matter that is just sucking everything into a dimension I don't understand. Where you go back to the Gersh device, it was developed by the Ascension Group, Project Mercury, Project Thunder, and all of a sudden it's sending them to the Ether. What is the Ether? Oh, well, that's based on some other lore. And you start to see how the line starts to change, and I think that's so fascinating, where this is opinion based. Some people are gonna like this, ooh, root it in reality, and like, ooh, what if we just twist it a little bit, versus fantasy, where it's like, well, this just makes more sense. What ended up happening is you started having diverging storylines. You started to have ideas where Jimmy Zielinski was pushing toward a zombie mode that really seemed like he wanted to go to sandbox method, that you were just dropped inside a world and you assembled parts and you ran around and you encountered all kinds of things, and there were quests to behold, almost kind of like a Skyrim idea of zombies, which wasn't really the direction Treyarch and Call of Duty was going with this. That might be why they had their differences and he left the company, who knows. But then you get into the fantasy elements of it, starting to say like, well, we want to do more interesting things with these characters. If we have zombies, why don't we have things like dragons, the Apothicon, the Keepers, to start explaining these things? The Cthulhu perspective is a great one to add to really take them anywhere. So this is why I'm trying to give two sides of the coin, because I don't want to just sit here crapping on fantasy, because I do enjoy sci-fi and fantasy very much so. For zombies, I personally love what they did with the sci-fi aspect. Fantasy kind of really turned me off to a lot of the story elements in Call of Duty Zombies, because it started introducing the multiverse, shattered mirrored theory, and all this stuff that really gets into, there's no meaning, there's no weight to anything. What makes a Game of Thrones, a Star Wars so interesting is there's not a million universes. There's not all these different variants that if a character dies, like Han Solo in the canon, if he dies, oh, there's a spoiler, sorry about that, but if he dies, then he's gone. There's no coming back. You know, cloning processes maybe, but you have some weight. There was a sacrifice. A story was told. A character had an arc. And that's very much what I've heard from the developers saying what they want to do with Call of Duty Zombies, why they got away from the stereotype characters. But during this arc and this storytelling, it doesn't have any weight, because who cares? There's so many different universes. It does not matter, even though there's a finite amount of relative universes in Call of Duty Zombies, who cares? I just want to play some zombies now. Like, there's dragons about, there's thrashers, there's giant spiders, there's these giant keeper things I gotta fight inside a pyramid. What sense does any of this make anymore? What logical explanation do we have anymore? We don't. We have this write-off that it's just a crazier time. It's a crazier fantasy, and that's the world we've accepted zombies has become, which I think takes the story back from what it originally was. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't evolve and we should keep things like the good old days. That's not what I'm saying at all. It really got away from the integrity of the game. Getting back to the idea I was talking about earlier, was stories told through in-game hints and scribbles, and character quotes were meaningful. The dates on walls led us to start researching things and giving us hints, and we'd start thinking about the direction it would go. Now, the story is told through cutscenes and ciphers that contradict one another, maps that are completely based around the story of our characters. The first 4 maps were all based around killing the 1.0 characters, when you have the giant, Darizen Drak, Zetsubou no Shima, and Gorod Krovi. Shadows of Evil introduced a new character, only to kill him off in the last game, only to introduce a new character as a new antagonist of the next franchise, most likely. They're gonna run with Monty and all this. And we had the Shadow Man, that's who I was talking about being introduced in Shadows of Evil. It just, all these characters that we're introducing now, too little, too late. Why is Monty getting introduced in Gorod Krovi? We have 1 map left. Why do we have this giant arc where the Shadow Man's introduced, okay, to explain how the zombies came to be? And then all of a sudden, all that stuff that happened in World at War and Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2 for that part, doesn't matter. How did Richtofen and Sam get into the child forms and get into these fantasy worlds? Why are we saving souls? Why do we care about these perfect untainted universes when that means no more zombies in our universe if we really got a free and safe universe? And then on the flip side, if you don't have a free and safe universe, what the hell was the point of all these maps? We had all these maps playing through these fantastical elements, and it just didn't add up to anything. Where we had Richtofen's grand scheme he took us through in Black Ops 1. We had an entire story being told to us. In World at War, we had the entire introduction of these characters and their demise. They had an entire story that they met in Sino Numa, found the doctor, got to the weapons facility, and they couldn't hold out against the Horde, and they made their last stand and died there, and da-da-da-da-da. That was the idea in the trailers, because they didn't know if zombies was going to continue on, but they put all these radios in, and you started listening to the experiments that were going on, and oh my goodness, where is this leading? And you got bits of that in Black Ops 3. We got little, like, remnants of what it used to be, but then you have dragons showing up. Like, Go Ride Krovi is such an excellent map with all these radios telling you about the setting and getting you interested in what's going on inside the map. Then all of a sudden you have a dragon showing up. You have Valkyrie drones hitting you in the face. You have eggs and a tiny dragon, a gauntlet of Siegfried, and all these extra little things. Sophia yelling at you as this weird ball thing that is hardly explained, that Max has saved her somehow because she was infected by zombies, and the technology to... I mean, this isn't established until radios in the next map. So again, it's going through this thing where in Doris, you have it established what's going on in this map. How are the teleporters being explained while we had them being tested on? Sophia in this map just badmouths us and is very sarcastic as the comic relief, but we don't get any insight into her to the next map. And this is where it starts to really hurt you in the fantasy and storytelling elements. You have these maps that are created with, we need Richtofen to kill himself, to kill Dempsey, to kill Takio, to kill Nikolai, and kill the Shadow Man. And then we gotta introduce these, that's how these maps are being developed, where back in the day, it was like, what would be a cool place for this to take place? Well, Zombie Swamp. Or Zombie Factory. Ooh, that's a really cool idea. And then we keep going with this. Also, it's like, what if we had zombies on the moon? What if we had them in Shangri-La? What would that look like? How could we incorporate a temple-like zombie thing? What if we had a lighthouse and we had an old abandoned Nazi sub? And that's where we've gotten so far away, especially with the censorship, away from Nazi zombies, that you've seen a waning of what zombies has become in that excitement and sense of exploration, the community putting the story together, and now it's really the developers saying, this is a story we're gonna tell, and you guys can try and figure it out, versus let's try and make something together. We're really gonna craft something fun that we don't know where it's gonna go. I wanna hear your thoughts, and then we're gonna really make something crazy fun. And now it's like, we have a story, it's a movie, we wanna tell it a certain way. And it's only my personal preference that I think, hey, you know what's way better than that? How it used to be told, only because of the experience it gave fans. This is not a movie. This is a video game. And by no means am I expecting a movie aspect in this video game. This isn't The Last of Us. This isn't Far Cry game or any sort of game where the narrative has to be told through cutscenes and stories and it pushes you in a linear direction. Zombies has never been like that. It's been this survival-based idea at its core, playing through tons and tons of zombie rounds to see what we can figure out about our surroundings, to try and explain what's going on in this map and where that's leading us. We had no idea where Richtofen's grand scheme was going. But by the first DLC, we knew everything that was going to happen all the way up to Revelations. And then when we got to Revelations, we knew what the heck was going to go down because there were no surprises. Nothing changed, nothing happened, no big twists or turns. When you start to talk about taking this game seriously, when the whole tone was a serious story being spun about these characters, and we have these meatball monsters rolling around, and these three-headed Margwas, the monkey-looking Apothecant Furies, like what is going on at this point? What about this is interesting and thought-provoking like it once was with these zombies that made terrifying sounds? The eye colors mattered at one point. Now, who knows? Who cares what the eye color means? The Shadow Man is manipulating everyone and was behind all the zombies, and so was Monty, and now we have no idea who's controlling the zombies. Originally, it was a reanimation of 115, and that explained why cells were coming back to life, and they were trying to unlock the mind so they could manipulate the zombies, and you have this logical progression of science versus fantasy, where fantasy is a lot more of accepting things how it is. And maybe that's just a fundamental problem with me, where I'm just like, I want to know things. I want to logically keep asking questions and figure it out for myself. Where now we get these things like, well, there's dragons because they made them. Really? They made dragons? Well, in this dimension, dragons were successful, and Division 9 was helping research that, and 115 just explains it. 115 is the answer to everything, and it's just like, why? Why does that make any sense? Where you have in Moon, they're playing with quantum mechanics, the QEDs, and really weird crap that happens with these weapons floating and the chalk outlines. You can start saying like, oh, it kind of makes sense because they were experimenting with something weird and were ripping dimensional tissue, but we still had some linear track to it. And I have a video where I even have suggestions for how we could have really avoided all the multiverse garbage and had a really good job sticking to our narrative after Black Ops 2. So I'll have that. That was a Treyarch binder video. I finally got the equipment I needed to really make it a good video, so I'm so excited to have that for you guys coming up. Going through all this and going back and forth explaining like fantasy is an excellent way to fix multiverses and inconsistencies and things that are not canon inside Call of Duty Zombies. But you could always take the Disney approach and decanonize it. Say, hey, this is all legends or some nonsense that this isn't the story we're trying to tell now. And we want to make a linear story that allows people to understand what's going on and enjoy the process. Because that's, again, what a lot of comics fall short with, that just have your head scratching like, why do I care? There's so many universes, and I kind of have to ignore all the rest and pick and choose what I want to enjoy. When you can just have a Game of Thrones type narrative where it's just like, oh, this is how it is. Even though they even start splitting up the TV show and the books, which gets more fans like, why care? But I would like to know your thoughts in the comments below. I reply to as many as I can, and I would like to hear your thoughts on, did you like science or fantasy more in Zombies? And is that just your personal preference, or do you think Zombies itself is better told through science or fantasy? Does the fantasy truly allow it to go anywhere it wants and you can enjoy it? Or did the science really give it that tone where this mattered and I want to play this and had the genuine interest I think it created? There's so many different ways you could take it, and I'd love to know them in the comments down below. I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you have a very happy new year. I have an awesome New Year's video I'm also making right now. I hope that'll get up on January 1st for you guys to enjoy, and then we'll have the Treyarch binder video and so much more to come. Thank you for watching. I absolutely adore all of you. We're almost at 134,000 subscribers. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.